There are moments in television history that change everything. Scenes that make people laugh, argue, or question where the line between humor and offense really is. And in the case of John Cleese, one such moment nearly ended his career. Yes, the man who brought us Fawlty Towers, Monty Python, and some of the most iconic comedy in British history once came dangerously close to being banned from television altogether. This is the story of the scene that almost silenced John Cleese, and how it exposed the tension between free expression and political correctness that still exists today. Back in the 1970s, British television was in a unique place. Comedy was bold, experimental, and unafraid to poke fun at anything: politics, religion, society, even the British themselves. Fawlty Towers, which aired between 1975 and 1979, was the perfect reflection of that era. It was chaotic, loud, and full of social commentary hidden under layers of laughter. John Cleese played Basil Fawlty, a short-tempered hotel manager who insulted guests, mocked authority, and constantly found himself in ridiculous situations. But there was one episode, one specific scene, that would change how the BBC viewed comedy forever. The episode was called The Germans. In it, Basil suffers a head injury and ends up saying wildly inappropriate things while serving a group of German guests. The scene was meant to be satire, a joke about the British inability to move past the war and their tendency to bring it up awkwardly in every situation. Cleese's performance was over-the-top, ridiculous, and hysterical. But not everyone found it funny. When it first aired in 1975, The Germans received mixed reactions. Some viewers thought it was one of the funniest things they'd ever seen. Others felt it went too far. The line, "Don't mention the war," became famous. But the surrounding dialogue, full of outrageous comments, made certain audiences uncomfortable. Even though the intention was to mock Basil's ignorance, some people missed the irony and took the words at face value. Complaints started pouring in. The BBC found itself in a tough spot. On one hand, Fawlty Towers was a huge success. On the other, they were being accused of broadcasting offensive material. Internally, some executives wanted to pull the episode, but others argued that it was clearly satire, a way of showing how ridiculous prejudice can be when taken to extremes. In the end, the BBC let the episode stay, but the controversy didn't die down. It only grew stronger with time. Fast forward to the 2000s, and the cultural landscape had completely changed. The same jokes that were once considered clever satire were now being re-examined through a modern lens. When Fawlty Towers reruns aired on BBC and other networks, The Germans episode often came with edits or warnings. Certain lines were muted or removed. And in 2020, during a major wave of cultural sensitivity and content review, the BBC temporarily removed the episode entirely from its streaming service. For a short while, The Germans vanished, as if it had never existed. That's when John Cleese fired back. He called the decision ridiculous and accused the BBC of misunderstanding the entire point of the episode. Cleese argued that the scene was anti-racist, not racist, because it was showing Basil as a fool. In his words, the joke wasn't on the Germans. The joke was on Basil, the idiot who couldn't let go of the past he believed the decision to censor. The show proved that people were losing the ability to tell the difference between mockery and endorsement. Cleese wasn't new to controversy. Even before Fawlty Towers, his work on Monty Python's Flying Circus had drawn criticism from religious groups and politicians. But this time, the backlash was stronger, because it wasn't just about one joke, it was about a changing world. What was once considered edgy humor was now viewed as offensive by modern standards. The BBC found itself in the middle of a cultural storm, caught between protecting history and respecting new sensitivities. For a while, it seemed like Cleese might actually get blacklisted from television altogether. His outspoken defense of free speech made headlines. Some praised him for standing up for artistic freedom. Others accused him of being out of touch. But through it all, Cleese stood firm. He believed comedy should make people uncomfortable sometimes, that it should challenge ideas, not just play it safe. "If you take away the right to make jokes about everything," he said, "then you take away the point of comedy." Eventually, the BBC brought the Germans' episode back, this time with a disclaimer. The new version opened with a short message explaining that the show contained outdated language and attitudes, but that it was being presented in its original form for historical context. For Cleese, it was a small victory. The episode was saved, even if it had to carry a warning label. But the bigger story here isn't just about one scene or one show. It's about how comedy itself has changed. Back in the 70s, comedians like Cleese could push boundaries and make audiences think by laughing at the absurdities of life. Today, those same jokes might spark outrage instead of laughter. The question is, where should the line be drawn? Should we erase the past because it makes us uncomfortable, or should we learn from it? Even now, Fawlty Towers remains a cultural landmark. It continues to make new generations laugh, not just because of its slapstick humor, but because of its fearless honesty. The "Don't Mention the War" scene isn't just a joke. It's a reminder of how humor can reveal truth, even when it stings. And perhaps that's why John Cleese is still considered one of the greatest comedy minds of all time, because he refused to play it safe. So yes, there really was a time when John Cleese almost got banned from British television. But instead of backing down, he doubled down, and in doing so, he preserved a piece of comedy history that continues to challenge and entertain decades later. Love it or hate it, that scene from Fawlty Towers still makes people talk, and maybe that's what great comedy is supposed to do.